Welcome to Don't Quote Me on That. One day we will have an intro, but today is not that day.
Hello. I'm Kalina, and welcome back to Don't Quote Me on That, where we kind of talk about movies. As you can see, I am alone. If you're an avid fan of the show, or even if you're new here, I usually have a co-host, Eleanor, here with me, but Eleanor is a little busy, so I'm alone again this week. I was alone again last week, too, but I got to chit-chat about books, which I never get to do, because Eleanor won't let me, so this is the Kalina show this week. And I did one of those, TikTok filters, where, album bracket filters where you just blah, blah, blah. But what I did is I closed my eyes and moved my head from side to side randomly and just let it basically pick one for me. And if it landed on a album I hadn't heard before, I was going to listen to it and talk about it with you, which obviously I did because I'm here. So I did that, and the album it gave me was Cry Baby by Melanie Martinez. And while I've heard a couple songs off that album, I've never actually listened to the album intentionally, or even any of the songs, I would say. So I gave it a listen, and here I am to talk about it with you. So we'll just hop into it. I do have my little notebook here. I'm a pen and paper kind of gal. So yeah, we'll just hop right into it. So Cry Baby, Melanie Martinez. It came out in 2015, and it was her debut album, which I did think. But Melanie Martinez was on season 3 of The Voice in 2012, and I don't think she didn't win, but she did fairly well, I think. So then she released Cry Baby in 2015, and it's described as alternative pop slash electro pop slash indie pop. The singles were Pity Party, Soap, and Sippy Cup, and I'm pretty sure Pity Party had like a TikTok phase. It was pretty big on TikTok. Everyone was using one part of the song. One thing I really like about Crybaby, this album, is it is a visual concept album. So there's a character there. As we go through the songs, I realize she put together a narrative very, very well. And even if I don't, a bit of a spoiler, don't like the songs individually, I think overall as an album concept, it's fantastic and very well executed. And I have a lot of thoughts about opening songs. Eleanor has a lot of thoughts about opening songs. Eleanor's not here, so you're going to hear mine, but our thoughts are the same. I think an opening song needs to be strong. It needs to grab your attention. It doesn't necessarily need to be the best song on the album, but it needs to draw you in and have also, I think, a clear, be very clear on what your sound is. Caveat to that is, if you're opening and you're doing a story, and it might not be necessarily the strongest song, or and since she's doing a visual concept album, I think opening with Crybaby, because Crybaby, the album, is about a fictionalized version of herself, I believe, is what Wikipedia said, named Crybaby, obviously. So opening with the title song, Crybaby, about the character, I think saves it from not being very musically strong, because I didn't really care for Crybaby. I said it was fine. It didn't really stand out either which way. And to me, Crybaby, when you call someone a crybaby, it's they're overly sensitive. But I didn't necessarily get that feel throughout the entire song. And not in a bad way, but it didn't feel like she was I'm over, our crybaby is overly sensitive and I cry about little things. It also felt a little bit like other people were being mean and taking advantage of that. Yes, she might be sensitive, people were taking advantage of it, because she says, someone's turning the handle to the faucet in your eyes. And also she kind of switches back and forth between, well, she says you throughout the song, and then at the end she goes, I'm crybaby. So then I'm crybaby is the pronoun she uses for the rest of the song. So yeah, it's not just not to say putting the blame on other people, but it's not just that crybaby is sensitive, it's that crybaby is sensitive and people exploit that and kind of dig into it because they can. So Crybaby, opening song. I get why we started there. Then we have Dollhouse number 2. In terms of the metaphor and the video, I thought this was genius when I was, how old was I? 15, 15-year-old me. I don't get why this wasn't a single. I think it's a good song. I think it stands out on its own enough. It could be maybe it was a little less radio friendly, because while she's not super explicit, she can be. So maybe I can't think of any bad words. I'll pull up the lyrics over here on the side. I think this would have been better for an opener. Again, I get why we started with Crybaby, it's the name of the album. And I really like how she says DOLLHOUSE. I see things that nobody else sees. And kind of this idea of like, because the gist of Dollhouse is like, we'll be a perfect family. We're posing for a picture. Don't let anyone see like what's going on behind the scenes. We just have to be this very nice, poised, mannequined family. So that's why they're in a dollhouse. Um, and I always think she says, please don't let them look through the surface, but she says, please don't let them look through the curtains. Picture, picture, smile for the picture, pose with your brother. Won't you be a good sister? Everyone thinks that we're perfect. Please don't let them look through the curtains. So I also think of it, there's a point I'm trying to get to here, and I will get it, I promise. Oh, when she says, I see things that nobody else sees, it's not even so much that like it's it's her whole family. I don't feel, at least I don't feel like it's her whole family going, things in our house aren't perfect, but we can't let anyone else know that. I think it's almost like the whole family is pretending everything's fine, and she's the one person who's like, everything's not fine. Everyone's like, yeah, it is, just get in line, don't let them know that you think that. I don't feel like it's her and her family against the outside world. I feel like it's her isolated within her family, but her family has to put on this beautiful front for the rest of the world. Which I think I like. Again, I don't, again, back to the single thing. I think that's an idea that like lots of people can relate to, even if it's not like your family, but like wanting to look like you have it together, or like wanting to put on a good face for whatever reason. So like maybe not the tragedies they're dealing with in this song here. Um, the dad sleeping around, the brothers, what I think she says, smoking cannabis. So like things like that. Um, Other mom's got a drinking problem. So while you may not be dealing with like catastrophes of that nature, um, I think wanting to put on a good face is something anyone can relate to, which I said already. Um, I think her bridges are kind of boring in the sense that she doesn't really have bridges. She kind of just usually does like two choruses, or she'll have like a kind of short little pre-chorus and then two choruses. So I was not impressed with this. Like, and I think overall, I noticed this throughout the album. It kind of makes some of her songs feel very repetitive because you're just hearing the chorus and the chorus and the chorus. And while she does very good with like, I'm looking at the lyrics here. While she does very good with like her metaphors and her imagery and all that stuff, I think she crafts it very well because the metaphor is so clear, and we're encountering the same themes and visuals throughout the song. When we get to the chorus and hear the chorus so many times, it feels repetitive because you're like, well, I just heard this kind of theme and I already had this imagery in my head, and we're just hearing this chorus again. So anyway, Dollhouse, I think it should have been a single if you hadn't gathered that already. So third song is Sippy Cup. Again, I heard more songs off of this album than I thought I did. So we heard Sippy Cup, and I really like the, I don't know if you call it metaphor imagery here, kind of the idea of making things pretty on the outside, but that's not going to change whatever awful rot is happening on the inside, which kind of also links back to Dollhouse, but this is less specific and more specific at the same time. She's not talking about her family and like being the sister in the family who's trying to keep it all together. The chorus, it opens with the chorus and it says, blood still stains when the sheets are washed, sex don't sleep when the lights are off, kids are still depressed when you dress them up, and syrup is still syrup in a sippy cup. So like you can put a pretty bow on it, but it's not going to change what it is on the inside. And I think the kids are still depressed when you dress them up line is very simplistic, but I think it really works here in her favor. I really like it. And this is the first time in the album she introduces kind of like, at least that I noticed, she introduces, for lack of a better word, ambient sound into it, where you have what sounds like liquid pouring between the opening chorus and the first verse. You have what sounds like liquid pouring into a cup, which comes after syrup is still syrup in a sippy cup. So I liked how she kind of connected that and kind of gave it some more depth by adding that sound in. And we know what goes on inside. So back to this idea of like of putting on a brave face, but also I think in sippy cup more so than in dollhouse, it's like we're not fooling anyone. Like you can come out here and put your syrup in a sippy cup, but like we still know it's syrup in there. So not just her with the cup with the outside people, if that makes sense. Versus Dollhouse, where it's like we need to put on a good face and we're fooling everyone except ourselves. in Sippy Cup, I don't think they're fooling anybody. And also, I think what comes up here is she says, silly girl with silly boys. And I think if you aren't listening too closely, that can kind of seem like she's putting the blame on the woman, which, is unfortunately all too common in media, especially like women versus women, because you need to stand out, for lack of a better word. But I think what Melanie Martinez does here is comment on, not to say she comments on society, but like she's presenting how society would react to a girl who's trying to do something for attention to boys. And this is also kind of where I started to notice where her narrative is coming through. But I'll wait a couple more songs to kind of tell you what I thought the journey we took was. Um, and she says, your favorite candy's cotton. That's why all your teeth are rotten. So there's nothing real in this case, she's saying you're not eating anything real. You're just eating sugar. And that's why your teeth are rotting away. But like in the grander scheme of your life, you don't have anything real, and you need real things in your life. You need real relationships and real fulfillment and real hobbies. But if you don't have any of those things, there's nothing to sustain you in a life, and you're not going to have a fulfilling life. Anyway, that was Sippy Cup. Next we have Carousel, which I hadn't heard Carousel before, so this is my first listen of Carousel. And I appreciated the use of fairground music. She like opens with fairground music, which I just said, but kind of like slowed down and kind of uses that to kind of, as the, I want to say it's kind of like the base for the rest of her instrumentals for this song. And I think the pre-chorus should have come in, because what we hear is we hear the fairground music, and then we get our opening chorus, which says, round and round like a horse on a carousel. We go, will I catch up to love? I can never tell. I know chasing after you is like a fairy tale, but I feel like I'm glued on tight to this carousel. And then you get some like xylophone kind of sounds, and I thought those should have come before the. Sorry, I thought those should have come after the second verse. I don't know what just happened to me. Sorry, um, but that's just maybe nitpicky. She was also kind of doing like what I call talk singing, where she wasn't really singing, like she was just speaking kind of in the melody, and sometimes she would draw out a word on the end just to make it fit the beat, but like it wasn't really singing. I wasn't terribly impressed with Carousel. I hate to break it to you if you're a fan of the song. She says, this horse is too slow, which is how I felt about the song as a whole. I just didn't like it as a metaphor, because she says, like I said in the chorus, will I catch up to will I catch up to love? I can never tell. And she says, but I feel like I'm glued on tight to this carousel. And so I kind of like, I like the idea of she's stuck on this ride even though she doesn't want to be. And it's not necessarily a bad ride, but like she'd like to be able to get off, but she never can. But to me, a carousel isn't a good example for that, because a carousel moves so slowly. So it's like, oh, I'm trapped. But like a carousel, you know how slowly a carousel moves? But again, I do get at the same time get it with the idea of moving in circles. Um, and when she says, "Will I catch up to love?" I will never know. That idea, and then the carousel moving slowly works, but I just didn't like it. I didn't like the bridge. I think this is my least favorite song on the album. I just felt like she could have done more. I don't think she's done more, or at least not much more, in the first three songs we've listened to. But like, I just felt like this was the weakest out of all four that we've heard so far. So after Carousel, we get Alphabet Boy, and she, like I said, she's very good at like crafting her story and putting it all together and having these little elements that help make it feel more authentic and more emotional, or I don't know, it just makes it better. So it's called Alphabet Boy, and she opens saying ba 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 ba, like the sounds of A and B. So I thought that was really nice. And then we get and this is also this is the first time we don't open with the chorus. We just open with that, and then we go into the first verse. Always aiming paper airplanes at me when you're around. You build me up like building blocks just so you can bring me down. You can crush my candy cane, but you'll never catch me cry. If you dangle that diploma and I did you, don't be surprised. So then we get the pre-chorus, and the gist of it is, I know no, not the gist, this is the opening line. I know my ABCs, yet you keep teaching me. And before I used to think she was saying you keep torturing me, because I've heard this a couple times before. But this is where I feel like think we're kind of getting the narrative clearly. Like she can't be manipulated anymore. So Crybaby, she's like sensitive, yes, but I also think people are taking advantage of her being sensitive. Then after Crybaby, we get Dollhouse and how she needs to put on a good face. So if Crybaby's sensitive, Crybaby also knows when to put on a good face and pretend everything's fine. Same thing with Sippy Cup. She's saying, "Yeah, I might put on a brave face, but not like it's not actually changing anything. It might look good on the outside, doesn't look good on the inside." Then we get Carousel. She's stuck chasing love, and she's not quite getting it, and she wants to get off the ride, but she can't. Then we get Alphabet Boy. She's kind of learned how to get off the ride, perhaps with a new partner. She's saying, I know my ABCs, but you keep teaching me, and I don't need you to do that because I know I've been through this before. In this case, the way I saw it was like she's been through a manipulative, I don't want to say quite abusive, but like not great, or at least emotionally abusive relationship before. And this new person's trying to do the same thing, but she knows better now. She's wiser now. So I thought it was fun. Like there wasn't too much to write about. It was fun. In the chorus, she says, "I'm not a little kid now. Watch me get big now. Spell my name on the fridge now with all your alphabet toys. You won the spelling bee now, but are you smarter than me now?" So again, the idea of like, yeah, you might have done this. Maybe you've done this before. Maybe you've manipulated someone before. Maybe you've been in a relationship before where you had the upper hand, but I know better than those other people, and I know better than me. Or in this case, it's Crybaby saying, "I know better than the crybaby I was before this relationship." So that was Alphabet Boy. That's track number 5. Also, we've talked about this before. If you have listened to any of our album reviews, I don't think an album should be longer than 10 songs. This album was 13, and then I listened to the deluxe version, which honestly I didn't even have to. I could have just done the 13, but like, I guess a plus to her songs being kind of repetitive was it didn't feel as long, but I still don't think an album should be longer than 10 songs. 15, maybe if you like really hone in your sound, which as I will get into, I don't think she did enough with those last 3 songs to justify having them. But again, it's a deluxe version, so they're probably like, I imagine, scrap songs that she put in, or like songs she didn't fit well. But anyway, that was track number 5, Alphabet Boy. Track number 6 is Soap. Again, have heard this one before. Also doesn't open with the chorus, and she says, "Let me under your skin." And I just kind of like the imagery of that. Um, Someone told me once that being in love was like when you love someone, you want to like crawl into their skin, and I don't really understand that, but I do like as I said, I like the imagery of that. I like that as a way to express how much you love someone. And usually, when someone washes your mouth out with soap, which is the running line, the running narrative of this song, running theme. Guess I better wash my mouth out with soap. Usually it's a punishment, like if you curse, moms wash their kids' mouths out with soap. I'm having such a hard time talking. Kids wash their moms wash their kids' mouths out with soap. But here it's not an external punishment that's being put upon her, but it's more self-inflicted, for lack of a better word, because she says, "I'm tired of, I said too much, it overflowed. Why do I always spill? I feel it coming out my throat. Guess I better wash my mouth out with soap. God, I wish I never spoke. Now I gotta wash my mouth out with soap." And for most of the song, you're like, oh, what could she, like, maybe you think she said something awful and she's just like trying to take it back. She couldn't help it, but it had to be said. And if you're thinking about, again, the idea of the relationship is like, maybe she finally said something about it, but wishes she could take it back because of the consequences. But later on, we realize it's "I love you" is the thing she said that she shouldn't have said, or feels she shouldn't have said. So I think here we're like maybe finally in a good relationship, but maybe she's a little more into it than he is, and you kind of want to go all in, but you're not quite sure if he's ready to go all in, but you slip up anyway and say "I love you," and how that can be devastating and ending and not good if you're on one page and the other person's not on the same page and ready to say "I love you," or if they're never getting there. So she says, should have never said the word love. So I think we're finally getting into Crybaby has come into her own. Crybaby's a little less sensitive. She's evolved as a person, yada yada yada. Also, more ambient sound here. She's got, since it's soap, we've got like the popping bubbles kind of sound in between. I think after the chorus, it's between the chorus and the verses. Um, Kind of like how she had the liquid sound, liquid pouring sound in sippy cup. And then there's going to be a liquid pouring sound because I have to drink a little tea. I have to tell you all, props to anyone who gives speeches regularly. This is very difficult talking to yourself. Anyway, that was song number 6, Soap. Song number 7 is Training Wheels, which I hadn't heard before. And this is next step in the narrative. Now we're on the same page in this relationship. And while I pull up the lyrics here, I'm very well prepared. Because she says, no training wheels left for you. I'll pull them off for you. And one, I love how she sings that line. I think it's absolutely beautiful. But two, it's I don't need these anymore. Like I've been riding with it. And I think at one point she says the training wheels are like worn down. So like she may have needed them at one point and she's used them. So probably in, the relationship she's experienced in the songs before this. But she doesn't need them anymore because she's ready to take the leap and go out on her own and say I love you. But I think more so in training wheels than in soap, the other person in the relationship is also ready to take their training wheels off, because she says before the first chorus, she says, "Promise I won't push you straight to the dirt. If you promise me, you'll take them off first." So she's learned from her soap relationship not to say I love you first, but like if you're she's Crybaby's kind of like, if you're ready to say I love you, well, I'm ready to say I love you. We could do that together and do this scary thing, because I remember when I got the training wheels taken off of my bike, and like that was terrifying at the ripe age of whatever I was. Don't ask me how old I was, but I remember when it happened. I remember like the first few times I tried to ride a bike and how you feel like you're gonna wobble and fall the whole time, and then you get it and it's so easy to do. They say like when you go back to something after a while, it's like riding a bike. So like it's easy to do now. I don't think I'll ever have a problem for as long as I live, God willing, knock on wood. Um, riding a bike. But the first few times you do it, terrifying. Get that like feeling when you're dropping in your stomach all the time. Um, so, and also and then later on in the song, she says, "It's not like I'm asking to be your wife," which I think is really funny, because I think maybe that's the problem you encounter, like in the soap example, where you're ready to say I love you, but the other person isn't. That can feel like too much of a commitment, and like like the other person might feel like you're tying them down and there's too much. So she's like, look, I'm ready to say. So now in training wheel, she's like, I'm ready to say I love you. If you're ready to say I love you, we could enter this new phase together. But I'm not like also, it's not like I'm saying we're gonna be together forever and ever till the end, until we die. Like it's just I love you. It doesn't have to be more than that if that's what scares you. So like I said, I really think she crafted her narrative for this concept album very well. Track number 7, Training Wheels. I liked it. Also, I'm not talking too much about the music, because for the most part, it didn't stand out to me any which way. Like the ones that did, I will mention the music and the instrumentals, but like for the most part, I don't want to say they were interchangeable, but they were all like, they were songs. You know what I mean? They weren't good, they weren't bad. They were just kind of middle of the road for me, instrumentally, at the very least, or like electronically, however you want to call it. So, track number 8 is Pity Party, which was one of the singles, if we remember. And this samples It's My Party by Leslie Gore, which is like I don't want to say old timey, but old timey song. And I think her sampling that kind of shows you what kind of music she's a fan of, because also I saw her do a cover of She's Got You by Patsy Cline, which my mom loves that song. And that's kind of like the same era, same sort of vibe of music. And because, as in both of these cases, it's women singing the songs, to me, it seems like it explains why she goes for this, like a veneer and kind of this character who's very naive and innocent and wants everything to be good and views everything as good, because I don't think women were allowed to be very emotional either which way. And a lot of times also those songs, why they might have been singing about something sad, sounded happy. Very classic narrative there, just because that was the style of music. So I think, again, back to the point, I think her sampling It's My Party for Pity Party kind of shows you what sort of music she's a fan of, which explains why she goes for these narratives in which things are awful, but she's kind of giving it this fun, childlike sound, not just because the character is a child, but because it's, the contrast. Long story short, the simple way to put it, sad lyrics, happy sound. She's just doing that in a kind of different way. I hope that made sense to everybody. It made sense up here and made sense when I wrote it down. And she says, I'm laughing, I'm crying. It feels like I'm dying. I'm laughing, I'm crying. It feels like I'm dying. And it's kind of the idea of basically, if you haven't heard the song, like I said, I was doing numbers on TikTok, but if you haven't heard the song, basically she sends invitations out to her party. Nobody comes, but like, fine, it's her party, and she can cry if she wants to and eat all her cake. If no one comes, it's more cake for her. And she's like, maybe there's a cruel joke on me, whatever, whatever. Just means there's way more cake for me forever, forever. And then I'm laughing, I'm crying. It feels like I'm dying. It's my party, and I'll cry if I want to. Lyrically, I think this is the most repetitive, partly because of the sample, which is like no fault to, Miss Leslie Gore, but just because of how she incorporates the sample, very repetitive with it's my party and I'll cry if I want to. But like that is the message of the song at the same time is I can do what I want. So back to Crybaby hasn't lost herself. Crybaby is still sensitive, but again, there was something that was the catalyst for her being sensitive and her being emotional, which was no one showed up to her party, right? You with me? I'm with Melanie Martinez, narratively. So that was song number 8. Song number 9, Tag You're It. This is probably my favorite song on the album. I've heard the song before. I really, really like this song. Um, One of my favorite things about it is she kind of does the voices of two characters. So she says it opens up, and again, we don't open with the chorus on this one. So she opens up with looking at me through your window. Boy, you had your eye out for a little. And then she puts this cool little vocal effect on, and then she does the voice of the man. So she says, I'll cut you up and make you dinner. You've reached the end. You are the winner. And every time I hear this song, for some reason, I think of like Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf. And when it's been a while since I read Little Red Riding Hood, but when the wolf is dressed up like her grandma and she's asking the wolf all these questions, but the wolf keeps slipping up. So she's like, oh, my grandma, what big teeth you have. All the better, and they're like, everything is like thinly veiled. And oh, what big eyes you have. What a big nose you have. All the better to see you with, my dear. And then finally, when she has teeth, all the better to eat you with. So, like, the whole time the wolf was being threatening and like hiding it, but just barely. And that's kind of the gist I get from the male point of view in this song, for lack of a better phrase. I'll cut you up and make you dinner. Let me take you for a joyride. I've got some candy for you inside. So I don't know. I just always think of Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf, the Big Bad Wolf. And also, it makes me think of The Lovely Bones, which I don't want to say horrible book because like it's a good book. It's a very hard read, and the movie as well. I read that book once. I've never picked it up again. I have no intention of ever picking it up again. The reason I thought of The Lovely Bones though was in the chorus. She says, "Can anybody hear me when I'm hidden underground? Can anybody hear me? Am I talking to myself?" And meanwhile, the male character is saying, "Tag, you're it. Tag, you're it." So basically, he's chasing her and he caught her. So I don't know if this is like, if you want to take it literally, it is a kidnapping. But maybe, I guess if we're going with the narrative of our story, I didn't think about this part just because I like this song and I was waxing poetic about the about Little Red Riding Hood and the wolf in my notes. Is she got tricked into another relationship that wasn't good? I think. At one point, she says, "Driving next to me, real slow." Let me see. She says, "Oh, rolling down your tinted window, driving next to me real slow." He said, "Let me take you for a joyride. I've got some candy for you inside." That's the second verse. And one, because this whole shebang is Crybaby being like a child or childlike character, for me, the visual of like him rolling down a tinted window in his car made him seem like so much older. So like it could be literally in the relationship he was older, or he was just the more domineering one, if that makes sense. Anyway, and he says, oh, she says, "I can taste your skin in my teeth." But this is not the sexy kind of biting. This is the fighting for your life kind of biting. And I wrote that down because there's a song she has later that kind of works with that same imagery of being able to like, or having like the person stuck in your senses, not just you remember them, but like smell and taste and touch and things like that. And the male character also says, I love it when I hear you breathing. I hope to God you're never leaving. I just really like the delivery of that line. And like, I think that could be a nice sentiment if he wasn't creepy in the rest of the song, right? If he wasn't kidnapping her and keeping her underground. I don't love the chorus in this one. Usually, I think she does a good job of her verses and choruses sounding good, cohesive, sounding like the same song. To me, here, no. I think the like at least the second half of the chorus with the "Can anybody hear me? Am I hidden underground? Can anybody hear me? Am I talking to myself?" saying "Tag, you're it. Tag, you're it." To me, it's just a little too cheery for the rest of the song, which to me almost sounds kind of haunting. And at the end, when the instrumentals taper off, it kind of sounds like a carousel or some sort of fairground or like even a music box kind of like dying out. And I really like that. Um, Maybe the idea of like trapping this, she's trapped this beautiful thing, it's dying out. If I want to get flowery with my metaphors. So that's song number 9, Tag You're It. Great song. If you couldn't tell, I think it's good. Song number 10 is Milk and Cookies, which I hadn't heard before. This one was okay. I didn't love it. I felt like the music was way too loud. I was having a really hard time deciphering what she was saying over the music. But the opening line is funny to me because it says melatonin's coming for you, which is me anytime I get on like a plane that's longer than 6 hours. I pop melatonin. Not, I never have trouble sleeping, but like usually when you're traveling that long, you're changing time zones. So I usually pop melatonin at the beginning of the plane ride. Sleep the whole time. 10 out of 10 would recommend. But the metaphor here, or the imagery she's using here, is like she's made poison cookies and giving the person poison cookies and spoiled milk. And so here I think in terms of our crybaby narrative, the shoe is on the other foot in the sense that now I don't want to say she's the abuser, but like she's the one who's calling the shots in the relationship. Do you like my cookies? They're made just for you. A little bit of sugar, but lots of poison too. And she says, ooh, honey, do you want me now? And I just feel like, yeah, I just think like she's grown up, but because of the relationship she's been in, the way she's learned how love should work isn't good. So she's reflecting that now in her new relationships, which she's not reflecting, what she's reflected isn't good. So she's not doing anything good in the relationship, if you're with me. But yeah, I didn't really care for the song. I feel like the music was too loud. Lyrically, it was like fine. She goes, 1, 2, melatonin's coming for you. 3, 4, baby, won't you lock the door? 5, 6, I'm done with this. 7, 8, it's getting late, so close your eyes. Sleep for days. So like the 1, 2, she could have done more. This was the simplest of them all. Then for 11, we've got pacify her, which supports my crybaby is now like the, again, I don't want to say abuser. Crybaby is now the, I don't know. Crybaby is now the bad guy. There we go. Or the villain, right? Um, so pacifier supports that because pacifier is about stealing someone's man from them. So she's like, come leave your woman or cheat on your, why did I say woman? Like leave your girlfriend or cheat on your girlfriend with me. Also, what I think is really interesting in this song is Crybaby, like, or Melanie Martinez, sings to both the guy directly and the girl directly. Because she says, someone told me stay away from things that aren't yours, but was he yours if he wanted me so bad? So there she's talking directly to the girlfriend, but then that's the pre-chorus. But in the chorus of itself, she says, pacify her, she's getting on my nerves. You don't love her, stop lying with those words. So now she goes from talking to the girlfriend immediately to talking to the boyfriend, saying, you don't actually love her. Like you want to be with me. So just like pacify her, tell her everything's fine, get rid of her, and then we can be together. And also, I think she does a really good job of infantilizing, for lack of a better term or word, the girl, because throughout obviously Crybaby is a child or childlike character. So here in the song, she does the same thing to the other girl. So again, she was on the other foot. Now, first, Crybaby was infantilized either by herself or other people who, like I said, were exploiting the fact that she was sensitive. And now she's doing that to someone else who is justified in feeling threatened or sad or childlike in whatever way you want to say that because you're trying to steal her boyfriend. But she says, "Where's her binky now? And loving her seems tiring. So, boy, come love me down." Which the loving her seems tiring part, fantastic line. Love how she says it. But the where is her binky now is she is she's not pitting Melanie Martinez is not pitting women against women. She is, I think, pointing out that that is the narrative that happens. It's like you're abused, you now that's how you express love, and what was done to you think is normal. And also, like in stories all the time when like a man is cheating on a woman, and for some reason the two women fight each other, which doesn't make any sense because like unless like in this case, Crybaby's the bad guy because she knows the guy has a girlfriend. Unless the other woman like knew homeboy had a girlfriend or a partner, why are you mad at her? She was also deceived. The two of you should fight him together. That's got nothing to do with anything. Well, it does a little bit. Fight him together, okay? Fight the man is my advice for most things. Fight him. Anyway, pacify her. Next, we get what I think is my second favorite song on the album, which is Mrs. Potato Head. And I think this is the best example in this whole album of walking the line between like the metaphor and like the reality and the imagery. I think she does a beautiful job here. I just like Tag Your It because honestly, the vocal effect on the male character pushes it over the edge for me. Mrs. Potato Head is about wanting to basically the pressures women have to look young and beautiful forever and ever and ever, and how they don't have value if they don't look like that. So it's about plastic surgery. And it's a warning message compared to Pacify Her, which was like actively threatening the other woman. Now she's like, maybe it's, I wonder if it's a warning because Crybaby maybe got the man and is now experiencing this, and now she's warning younger women, or if it's just a warning she received that she's parroting, if that makes sense. I need to stop saying that. Um, but she says, "Baby soft skin turns into leather. Don't be dramatic. It's only some plastic. No one will love you if you're unattractive. Oh, Mrs. Potato Head, tell me, is it true that pain is beauty? Does a new face come with a warranty? Will a pretty face make it better?" And also in this song, I just realized she also talks to the guy and the girl, because first she talks to Mrs. Potato Head, which is the title of the song. But then in the second half of the chorus, she says, "Oh, Mr. Potato Head, tell me, how did you afford her surgery? Do you swear you'll stay forever, even if her face don't stay together?" So, Mr. Potato Head wants a beautiful wife who he, will pay for her plastic surgery because as long as she's beautiful, she has value and he will keep her. And even if it's hard and painful to do these things, the potato head needs to keep having the surgery, otherwise she won't have any value anymore. So Crybaby's trying to like warn them of that. And they say it's such a shame, or sorry, it's such a waste when little girls grow into their mother's face, but little girls are learning how to cut and paste and pucker up their lips until they suffocate. I could talk about this forever. I mean, like when we talked about Jennifer's Body ages ago, we talked about like how the only way I could articulate a lot of things is being a teenage girl is hard. But I think being a girl is hard. I think being a person is hard. Let me preface that. But like being a girl is obviously a unique experience, especially in this, at least in the society we live in, because of the values that are placed on you, even if you don't agree with them, that you have to live up to in order to succeed. Because if you reject them, you're seen as, I don't know. I think you're almost demonized. It's so much worse than if a guy rejects the values put upon him, right? Not to get too political, but just it's such a waste when little girls grow into their mother's face. And to me, I've had this conversation recently with a friend about like how young some kids are and they start wearing makeup and how that's just, it can become like a lifelong cycle you can't escape. And growing into their mother's face to me means a couple different things. Like growing into their mother's face, obviously their mother is older, so growing old is bad. Maybe they don't want to look like their mother, which is an awful thing. I'd love to look like my mom, So it's awful if they don't have that value for their mother. But also if they grow up, because I think parents want to tell their kids they're beautiful. So the example I had in my head is the mother might say, "Oh my goodness, you're so beautiful, and I love you, and you're perfect the way you are," but might grow up seeing their mother in turn say those things to them and then turn around and put makeup on their face, or maybe get plastic surgery, or do these things to please Mr. Potato Head in this scenario. And they don't know any better because that's what they grow up watching. So why they might hear, yes, you're perfect, actions speak louder than words, they're going to do what they see, not necessarily what they hear. The little girls. So I don't know. I could talk for a long time about the whole makeup concept and just how it's. I don't think it can be a good thing. I think it'll be a while and it'll take a lot of change and reform before it can be a good thing. And then the pucker up their lips until they suffocate is you're either going to have to maintain this image until you die, or I guess almost die a social death, or die in terms of your value in society if you don't conform to these things and if you don't get the surgery and try to stay young and beautiful forever and ever and ever. Hey, Lana Del Rey also said it. Will you still love me when I'm no longer young and beautiful? I need to hurry up. I'm using my pen as a microphone, so clearly I've been here too long. That was song number 12, Mrs. Potato Head, second favorite on the album. 13, and this is the last of the regular album, is Mad Hatter. First time I had heard this too. It's fun. I think it's a fun little song. It's not super duper deep. Yeah, it's not super duper deep. It's using the metaphor of the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, and she, in one point, she goes, getting high off helium, and there's a nice little vocal effect where it sounds like her voice is higher, like helium. I don't. It's a little like, oh my god, she's so crazy. You can't take her anywhere, sort of vibe. Because she says the normals, they make me afraid. The crazies, they make me feel sane. And I just don't like that. But that's like the pre-chorus bit. But I do like the chorus. She says, I'm nuts, baby, I'm mad. The craziest friend that you ever had. You think I'm psycho. You think I'm gone. Tell the psychiatrist something is wrong. Over the bend, entirely bonkers. You like me best when I'm off my rocker. Tell you a secret, I'm not alarmed. So what if I'm crazy? The best people are. And that part is the quote, or based on the quote at least, from Alice in Wonderland. And you like me best when I'm off my rocker, I think kind of goes back to the whole Mrs. Potato Head is they want this idealized version of a woman, but they want a woman who's like not like other women, but you also need to be beautiful. You need to conform to these standards that we've set for every other woman, but you can't be like every other woman. Like you need to be beautiful, but you can't care about the fact that you're beautiful. And I'm sure I'm parroting and repeating things most people have heard before, I hope, these sort of discussions. But what I like at the end of the song, she goes, I think you're crazy too. I know you're gone. That's probably the reason that we get along. So I think maybe in terms of the narrative of Crybaby, she's found her equal. She's found her match. She's found someone who gets her and accepts her for who she is. And maybe she's reaching a place where she no longer is playing into these roles and this abuse that she was taught and learned meant love. But because that's what her example was and that's what she thinks is normal, by default, them breaking out of that is them being crazy. See? Oh, this is big brain time. I'm so smart, guys. Anyway, that was Crybaby by Melanie Martinez. I think it's a good album. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I hope you all enjoyed my chit chat. My throat hurts very much. This is much easier when Eleanor's here to kind of share the talking time with me. If you all like this video, let me know and I can do another one of those like little TikTok filters. I've said the word TikTok so many times today. And if you enjoy this, or if you enjoy this, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Interact with it however you interact with it on whatever platform you are listening to this on. And if you have any suggestions for other albums I could talk about, or if you want to hear me talk about Melanie Martinez more, some more of her work, I definitely will. Just let us know, and I will be back next week. And hopefully Eleanor will be back next week, but we'll see about that one. Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't quote me on that. One day we'll have an outro, but it's not today.